Hello, ghostly listeners. You've got Jake here, and I'm with my co-ghostess with the mostest, June Nixon.
Hi, everyone.
So today's podcast is another one of our roles in a ghost hunting team episodes. We're going to cover off on the last role, well, that every team probably should have, and that's evidence analysts. And what makes a really good one, what they do, some of their job details, and all the fun jazz like that.
That sounds good.
Mm-hmm. So really, there's about three types of different analysts. There's an audio, video, and image analyst. Now, with current trends and with technology, we can see that video and image is pretty much merging into one role, even though some of the skills will be a bit different because, you use different software for video than you do for images in general. But that is starting to combine. And generally speaking, on a ghost, where I guess you would call me more of the video analyst, I've been using that more than just straight up imagery. And one of the reasons for that, before the first role we're going to go into a little more depth with, is the audio analyst. So for EVPs, but with video and image now, I think video has become a bit more important. For one thing, you can export images from it, but also video gives you the context for the ghostly engagement that you've captured. So that's just a little preface before we get into that. That's those two specific roles. But when it comes to audio, there's no one as good as June.
I try. I actually really do. I really do enjoy listening to the audio, and I don't know why. For me, listening to audio is better than watching the video, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm all about using the video.
Yeah. But, video is where it's at. I think they should go hand in hand, and that's why, when you have this amazing camera, you also have or with video camera, you also have that amazing sound recorder with the video camera.
True.
So, they should go hand in hand because that's basically where the evidence is at. If you get, one picture of a ghostly image walking down a hallway, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, what was that really? But if you get a ghostly image of something walking down the hallway with video, that's a whole different ballgame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, video's becoming kind of like the multimedia smorgasbord, I guess you could say, because of the audio and the image quality and all that stuff. But let's stepping back to the audio analyst, because I'm going to go all out on video.
Okay. Yes, please.
But with audio itself, what just basic things, duties. It doesn't have to be a specific skill set or anything. But when it comes to audio, what do you think are like the duties, the recurring tasks that the audio analyst would be responsible for?
Well, I think the audio analyst should, be able to store the audio evidence from investigations or input audio data into the editing tool, things like that. Listen to the tracks multiple times to find evidence. They should have a lot of patience. That is one thing that's very important, and not, just kind of skip over things.
With that, in regard to that one, I think like when I do it, I usually listen to each track 3 times, which I know can add up.
Right.
But since EVPs are so quiet to begin with, you gotta, it's just a gotta do. So June, when it comes to listening to, with the software, because it visualizes, if I could talk, right, visualizes waveforms for the sound, what's a pro tip?
Well, one thing is when you are kind of watching on the sound software, basically, when you're watching this, it kind of shows as wavy lines when there is something speaking or talking or some sort of noise, when you see it, you'll just think, oh, that's probably, where somebody is speaking or talking or a sound happens. So I'll just skip to that part. Don't do that, because there's a lot of times something may be in, you may be able to hear something, but it's not showing up on the wave file. So the wave
That
line,
is so
basically.
true. So
Yeah.
the last ghost hunts we did, I think this was back in part of January and part of February at Spooked in Seattle, we did get EVPs, but it didn't have a waveform. And I find that's more true than not.
Right. Exactly. So it's just one of those things where you really have to have the patience to listen to everything. And I think that's extremely important for, analysts to do.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. But, and they also need to go in and debunk, the claims of ghost voices if they hear EVPs.
Well, let's talk about debunking for a quick sec then for
Okay.
the audio analysts. What are some of the most common reasons for a false positive EVP?
A lot of times it could even be movements. If you're wearing some sort of clothing or something that kind of makes some noise, it can go sheep, or something.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh my gosh, that said, kill me. You know what I mean?
I guess we could talk about the matrixing aspect
Yeah.
of the it's pareidolia or pareidolia.
Yeah.
I forget how you pronounce the word, but
And also people whispering. If
Oh,
there
yeah.
is an investigator in another room and they start whispering, all of a sudden you're gonna, pick that up. It's easy to pick up whispering. You may think you're talking, quiet, but I hate to tell you this, it really does carry when other people are listening to their audio and they hear.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
And some recorders actually do pick up radio. I've had that experience more with my older audio recording not software, but devices. So I would say you don't necessarily want to use a recorder that can also pull in radio,
All right.
because
I
that
never thought
stuff
of
is
that. Yeah.
always on.
Yeah, because that would be something. And also too, it's like if you this is why it's really important for the investigator to tag every single thing that happens. So if an investigator is like sitting there and all of a sudden, you got to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, that was my stomach growling."
Yeah, that's true.
And
It does sound like a
yeah.
demonic growl.
And especially if somebody else is listening, to your footage.
Uh-huh.
That's very important because if you're listening to it later, you're like, I don't need to tag that because I'll remember that my stomach was growling. It's like, no, you got to tag everything. And
Yeah. So one of the things that I like is I like to have the analysts not be the investigator that recorded it. I think it makes it more objective.
Yep, probably does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then let's see. The other thing is you have to have the timing for when you eat to when you investigate.
Yeah, that's probably really important. Or at least to have something there, something to snack on, or say, I need to take a break and I need to eat some crackers or something, just to fill the void.
Yeah. Calm down the stomach.
Yeah, exactly. I have been on an investigation where, I was with somebody and all of a sudden it was like every 5 seconds.
Yeah. And I've had that problem too. And the thing is, like, I wasn't even hungry, but the guts gurgle.
Yeah, exactly. You can't control that. You cannot control that.
So if that's the case, I mean, you have the Twinkies ready to go to settle this.
Right. Exactly. Because it is very distracting.
Yeah. And the other thing, and this is just me, I would say when it comes to collecting evidence and stuff, especially if you're going to do it in an urban environment. Let's just take the University Heights Center, for example. It has those old windows. It's not very well insulated from outside, if I could talk, outside noise. You're going to get a lot of bleed through from the environment. So a lot of times I throw out all of my audio if I'm in a room that's can be exposed to outside noise, because Sound waves
Unless
travel. Sound waves
unless
travel.
though, I mean, I can, say unless you hear a voice that's like right next to the
That's
microphone.
true.
I mean,
Yep, that's a good point.
you can actually tell the difference a lot of times,
Hmm.
that if all of a sudden, you hear a little girl, speaking right into the microphone or whispering into the
Hmm.
microphone saying, no,
Or
something like that.
I'm gonna rip your face off and suck
Exactly.
your soul.
Exactly. If you hear that right in the microphone, that's a whole different story.
true. And I think one of the other things that you can do is have multiple recordings going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you have like one on the window ledge or something and you're getting all this, noise, but you have
Hmm.
one on the inside and you're hardly getting any of that, that's probably a good clue that it's outside. But
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, but you have to make sure that you point the audio recorders in different directions from each other.
mhm.
Because like I come with the camera, and I'll get to this under video, but I have industrial strength mics
Yes, he
with
does.
my
Amazing
camera. So
mix.
if that mic gets it and the other two recorders get it, it's either someone talking or something else is going on. I have had one experience at Spooked in Seattle in the underground where I had two cameras going and two audio recorders set up, and they all picked up the same sound, the same EVP. It's just only one of the cameras which was pointed, and everything was pointing at different directions. One camera picked it up as if someone was standing right in front of it, but the others heard it as at a lower volume.
That's really
But it was
cool.
the same EVP.
I do have to say my favorite thing is though is when you have two recorders that are really close together and one of them picks up a really weird loud voice or sound
Mhm.
and the other one doesn't pick it up, but you hear
Yeah.
the same background noise. That's
Uh,
really, really freaky to me. I
yeah,
love
that
that.
is. Yeah, I don't really. Yeah, I mean, it's Ghost, so we don't really know,
Yeah, we don't know how it
know why
happens,
it does one and not the other.
because that's happened to me. I think I told you that one time where my friend and I were standing side by side basically with our audio recorders.
Mhm.
She picks up a screaming baby on hers and I have nothing on mine, not even a hint of a
Mm,
screaming baby.
that's
Don't
wild.
know why. That is just the strangest thing ever, but yeah,
Hmm.
it happens.
Hmm. Moving on to a bit more of the technical side, let's talk about how to trim your EVPs. What's some pro tips when it comes to isolating your EVPs for publishing?
Um excuse me, you might want to answer this one a little better. I think you're better at it.
Oh, okay.
If I
So it
can clear
depends.
my throat
Yeah,
while you're doing that.
yeah. So I mean, when it comes to using the software, um, everyone should know the basics of how to trim the file, right?
Right,
And
right.
everyone's a little bit different, but it usually goes with something you either, you know, do a right click and drag over the area to isolate it and then just export it. Other times you have to split it at the playhead. So you'll see the timer at the top of the software.
Right,
You
right.
usually want to give it 2 or 3 seconds
At
before and
least, yeah.
after. Yeah, just for
And
the lead in.
and make sure you when you do that you either make a note somewhere where it's at, where you found it. That's really important. A lot of times I will do that in the naming of the file. I'll say, found at 7 minutes and 32 seconds, something like that, because that is really important. But yeah, give it enough time before and after, because there have been times where I have just not really thought and just kind of isolated that part, and it's like, what the hell was I doing there? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is a bit more technical, and that is when you're doing your files or you're setting up your recorder, and this could be mics on a camera or just like I use Zooms myself, you're going to see a setting for high pass and low pass filters. And what that does is it silences the more bass sounds, and then you have the high pass filters, which takes care of the higher pitch sounds. The
Right.
thing is, you don't know where in the
Right.
frequencies the EVP is going to be. And when you think about a male's voice, it could be heavier bass,
Mm-hmm.
and a lady's voice or a child's voice could be higher pitched. And so my pro tip is to set everything to a flat filter. It doesn't take out high end or low end,
Right.
because you could essentially filter out the EVPs by doing that.
Yeah, or a recorder that gets rid of the background noise or anything like that, or was it that only records when you're that only records when you're speaking.
Yeah, you have to watch
like
all that stuff.
Yeah, really be careful because that's where a lot of the EVPs lie.
And then the other thing is if you use noise reduction, it depends on the volume of the EVP, right? So if it's crystal clear, like a DVP, almost like you could hear it, like we had this at Thornwood Castle while we were recording, I heard the EVP come across. Those will usually survive noise reduction.
All right.
The other whispers that you hear probably will not.
Yeah, because there have been several times I've gotten some, where that one in the Shady Lady in Centralia, where, Ross was asking me for a pen. It's like, June, do you have a pencil or a pen? And then you hear a voice say, no. And it's clear, but it's, that underlying tone.
Yeah. And the other thing you have to watch is when you amplify the track, because when you do that, you boost the levels, increase the decibels where you isolated the EVP. You can distort it so much, or you get that hiss sound that's really bad and it masks.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I stay away from noise reduction and I don't amplify very much. I mean, if you're going to go the route of amplification, I would say use the manual. You've got the EQ. It'll be in the software,
right?
And it'll show you low, mid, and high, and you can manually tweak these to help the voice come out more.
Yes.
So
and learn how to do that properly, because honestly, I was doing it really poorly for a while, where I would just like enhance the the supposed EVP, and the other voices were soft. It just sounded really bad. So learn how to do it properly.
And you can practice with it. I mean, it's got a loop. If you this is where you just drag that section to select it and then manipulate it, but always go back to the original file. For the longest time, I only put up the original file. If you heard it, great. But now, I mean, because everyone has different speakers and stuff, and I do believe in publishing everything to the web. If you get evidence, people have to be able to hear it, but add the disclaimer that you've altered the file.
Yes.
And
so people will think that's been manipulated.
Yeah. I mean, it's all been manipulated, right?
Yeah. But you just put that in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got to do that, but always have the original file ready to go if someone asks for it.
Exactly.
And then we'll get into the tools that we use a little bit later. But what else should an audio analyst know how to do?
Well, like you said, make sure you publish the files to the website, or, most of the time, if we do get something really good, even if it's at a private residence, because a lot of times the people say, well, you're not going to, publish anything that you find here. But, if you basically don't disclose their name or where we got it or anything like that, then I see no problem with publishing the evidence that you get, unless it's something that it's very private, like the spirit is talking about the person. But basically I do not I don't know, what do you think? What are your feelings on that?
I generally don't publish any. Well, if it's a business, a museum, some kind of public place like that, I pretty much publish everything because it's a public place. And if it's a ghost speaking to you, they've been dead a very long time. So no harm, no foul. When it comes to private residences, I usually just do the question leading in. And then the EVP.
We don't want to ever put any information regarding the people that we got it from, unless they're like, hell yeah, I'll tell everybody in the world that I got this,
Yeah,
so,
but I mean, if anything,
with their permission.
Yeah. But I mean, if you get phantom footsteps or something like that's no harm, no foul.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're not going to hear anything else.
Yeah. Or if you were doing, say, an engagement session and you got the knocks, like one knock for yes, one knock for two. Okay, that's fine.
Right,
as
exactly.
long as you're not mentioning anyone's names or
No
street
one's name. Yes,
addresses
yes,
or any
exactly.
of that stuff.
But they should, like I said, publish the files to the website or, some social media even saying,
Mhm.
hey, what do you guys think of this, ZVP that we caught? Or, here's some video evidence or
Yeah. So generally speaking, I really don't care to do it to social media channels
okay.
unless it's like YouTube where it's part of a video
Exactly.
that you've
Yeah.
done, because you
Yeah,
have
I
more
agree.
control of that. And the other thing is with social media, I have no stomach for trolls. I mean, I prefer a
Mhm.
positive, supportive
Yeah, because
environment.
you're gonna get that's fake.
Yeah.
You guys are just a bunch of charlatans.
Because I haven't had this experience. I know a lot of other teams have. I have, and I've been doing this really since 2007. I can't say I've had too many jagoffs.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, but mind you, I've had my website around for a very long time, and I control what I actually publish there. But on the social media side of it, even with YouTube, which can be notoriously nasty, not it's been pretty much fine.
Well, I think the way you present it too, is it's pretty good because you're basically saying this is what it is. I mean, this is what we found. What's your opinion?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, oh my gosh, these are fairies, playing in a meadow.
Oh yeah.
You
I
know what
do
I mean?
Yeah, I do play more of a was it straight, hard news journalistic.
Yeah,
Like, here's
exactly.
the stuff. This was the context for it. There you
So
go.
that makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, I do not make claims that it's real or not.
Like the people who are experts, I'm saying that in air quotes,
Yeah.
in the paranormal, who say, well, this is the way it is. And, there's no other opinion, yeah, there's going to be some people say, oh yeah, well, I think it's, your grandmother out for a little stroll in her, nightie.
Mm-hmm.
And you just,
Yeah. And one of the things though, when it comes to audio, that when I publish it, I do, this is not a best practice, but I do it anyway. I do put quotes, what I think the phrase says,
yeah.
and
Well, I
which you're
mean,
not
especially
supposed to
with
do.
that.
But
Well, especially with something like that, when you have it out there on YouTube or something else, a lot of people are going to be asking, well, what do you think it says? But yeah,
mhm.
I think that's fine.
So let's move on to our next.
Should we talk about the video analyst duties now?
I think so.
Because I consider you a guru.
I just know
Of
how
the
to cut some
video.
film. I just
Yeah.
know how to
You're
cut
really
some
good.
flicks.
Yeah.
So yeah, with video analysts, I mean, there's some overlap because you're going to be using a mic you don't have to use a mic for your video. It's just, like I said, video context is very important. So you
Yes.
need to make sure you got everything going on here. But I'll get straight into the duties and then we'll elaborate on them a bit more.
Sounds good.
So if you're the video analysts, I mean, a lot of times, first, we didn't really talk about this, is you've got your tech manager that's going around to all the equipment and make sure it's working. Usually they grab the SD cards that the analysts are going to use simply because they're in charge of the equipment. But just make sure if you're the video analyst that you store the videos somewhere safe that's easy to share them. And I would say labeling the videos is very important. And you really want to do the who, what, when, where, why type thing. And that just means let's just use Thornwood Castle. I had the camera. So I would start with Jake. That's me who's recording it, the date and the time, the location, because, unless you have the film running continuously, usually you're going to be turning it on and off. And as part of that labeling practice, you would want to say like English Garden. I mean, it'll be obvious from the video in that case, but if you're inside someone's house or an abandoned building, not that I want you to be urban explorers and trespass.
Yes,
Don't do that. Get permission. Make sure you put the location and maybe the room or part of the property where you're at. Okay. And then approximately how long it runs as part of the labeling of the files. The video person can do it. I think the investigator, when they pass the stuff off, should have it in their notes.
Right.
So that's just part of the storage in general. And like Google Drive is perfect, so you can share your files easily with a link. And then it comes to inputting the videos into the editing tool. So this is going to vary by the different software that you use. Now, generally speaking, I use iMovie. I've got Macs. And we'll get into the software that you can use. And the iMovie will not just take any video file. So with the Tech Manager, you have to make sure you've picked a preferred recording type.
It's
And
good
so
to know.
so you can get M4As, you can get MP4s, I think. I generally record everything as MP4s, and everyone's going to bitch and moan and say there's compression and all that stuff issues, but we'll talk about that later.
Yes.
And one of the other things I think is very important for you as the video analyst to do is understand how your audio works in your workstation, which is a workstation is the term for the video editing software that you're using. Because sometimes you want to keep everything together, and sometimes you have to know how to separate the audio from the video, and you'll have to know how to insert EVPs that might have been picked up from the audio analyst.
Right.
So you've seen the Ghosty shows, right? Ghost Adventures is a perfect example of this, where they play back the audio or the EVP like 50 gazillion times.
Mm-hmm. And it's usually
yeah. True.
Yes.
You have to know how to drop it in because the mic on the camera may not have recorded it.
Right.
So, and you want to be able to put that in, especially if you're doing a video clip or a recap for everyone to watch. So that's important, how to import audio and put it into your timeline for your video editing. The other thing is, and this is really important, especially in video, you're going to get a lot of orbs, mists, rods, just like video, because it's visual. So you have all these aperture settings, stuff like that. You have to know how to explain if an orb or a mist, a shadow,
True.
is, if you got a false positive or something's legit. Okay.
Because we have seen a lot of the shows that they do not, they explain it, but it's usually because they think it's a ghost.
Yeah. And we've got other posts on debunking, so I'm not going to go into that here on this podcast because it's better done in a visual medium and not auditory here. So I'll put some links in there as well on debunking orbs and ghost lights, stuff like that. And when I put a link to the webpage, I have a list of resources and books and videos you can watch that will cover this stuff as well.
Awesome.
So the other thing is editing. It's all about doing your transitions, how to transition from one piece of evidence to another. This is just straight up video editing. It's just some of the edits that you do in the cuts will help people understand what's happening better than like fading to black and fading and all that stuff.
Right.
Understand some basics of the video editing process. You don't have to be like a movie editor. Okay. You just have to know how long to do a transition in between it, because a lot of people will just watch without listening. And you want to make sure that you can present things that you don't necessarily have to listen to understand what's going on.
That's good.
The other thing, this is really important. Again, this is really nerdy tech. So it's like if you're a video analyst, you're noticing half of this stuff isn't actually ghost hunting reviews. It's how to actually make a video. And one of the things you have to do, especially if you publish to your website or to social media, you cannot have gigantic file sizes. So you have to figure out the art of how I export these files to make sure your website can actually take the video file, because there's size limitations on lots of them. Like I use WordPress. I got 50 megabytes. I can't just, like we did the Thornwood Castle, it's a 19-minute video. It in its original form would not go up on WordPress. Right. So you have to know how to present the video. I'll call it in a lightweight fashion, which means you can put it up on YouTube or something like that and embed it. And you should know how to do all of that stuff, which that can be covered. You can just go out to YouTube and watch a tutorial on that. But if you're familiar with YouTube, upload it to YouTube and then just share the link from there. This is another thing, and I'll probably catch some shit for this, and I really don't care. I think it's important to be able to do like a sizzle reel, I'll call it, which is know which parts to show that tell the story, and it's easy to understand. because people, like when you're sharing your evidence and stuff, it's the web and they're on their phone. They're not going to dick around and wait for a long video to get rocking and rolling.
No, that's true.
So know how to string together the best parts to reduce the, the time to watch. So Thornwood Castle is kind of an aberration for me because it was long. But we had some good evidence and we wanted to talk about the history of the place. So that one's a bit longer. But you'll notice, like Spooked in Seattle, when we got the shadow figure, it was just the parts of the shadow figure. So just get to the point. If anyone's curious, they can ping you. You can send them the original files if you want. And then the other important thing is to work with the other analysts when you're doing this, because if you're doing video, like I said, you can import audio, you can import pictures, you can export pictures from video as well. And it's important to be able to mash up all of those different analysts, the evidence collected by those analysts to put together your video recap of the ghost hunt so that it's properly showing the context for the ghost hunt, which also means you have to be really good at maybe boosting audio because EVPs are quiet. And depending on the software they use, you might have to actually do it in the video software. So it's important to know which levers to pull in the video editing software to help the audio, as well as how to export and import photos. Photos make really good transitions in video. Or you want to, if it's a really fast moving, blurry type video image, the image analyst, which we'll get to next, might have picked up something very clear that you'll want to insert into your video. So cool. Like I said, only half of the video analyst job is really about reviewing the evidence. Otherwise, it's all about how do I use video to explain what happened during the ghost hunt and showcase the evidence.
That's really good. Yeah.
Okay, I spieled a lot there.
Mm-hmm. No, that was very good though. Very informative. Yes. Well, I guess the next one would be the image analyst duties.
Yeah. So So like I said, video and image is pretty much going together because, I don't see people taking so many pictures anymore. And I think that's simply because if you're using flash or still images, I think you get a higher rate of false positives.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we do have cameras.
That's true. But one thing about us too is, we always make sure we at least take 3 pictures, 2 or 3 pictures, usually 3 pictures of each area that we're taking the pictures of, because all of a sudden you may have something show up on one picture that's not in the other picture, which is kind of cool, the evidence wise. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's usually a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, this, I would say this was more so like 10 years ago. I mean, camcorders have become pretty inexpensive now, but certain cameras have far better focusing. And definitely higher image quality than a lot of the camcorders. And like now we have Sony 4K, right? Yeah. I use a Sony 4K, and which is going to give you a crisp image, but still pictures. And because of the focus and low light conditions, camcorders aren't as good in low light conditions than a standard picture camera, because you can do different lenses and you can do all the manual settings. So that's one thing as the image. I would say that's more the tech manager's duty to know how to do all that stuff. Right. But with the image analyst, I mean, a lot of it's going to cross over with the video. Like you have to know how to label and store images, very similar to what you do in video.
Right.
You have to know how to input and use the photo editing software. And just, I don't think you have to go too crazy with this, because image manipulation can give you a lot of hoaxery.
Oh, yes.
But I mean, at the end of the day, you probably should know how, like I've got a Mac, you should know how to use at least Preview, because it does have a lot of auto correction on it. And you've got Photoshop as well. But you should be able to know how to manipulate some of the color spectrum and contrast, stuff like that.
Right.
So that you can make if there's an apparition or something like that, stand out a bit more. Yeah. But you have to label it when you publish it that you manipulated it this way.
Exactly. Or people are going to say, what did you do to it? You just put that image in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, sometimes we're torn where, sometimes you circle the anomaly to help people see it. I get that more so for shadow people.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have an apparition, I don't think you should do that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, hopefully most of it speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, it's like, look in the tree, you can see the shadow person peeking out the tree, and it's like, yeah,
That's
I don't
Matrix.
really think that is, a shadow person. They're like, but look, and they circle it really big, and you're like, no.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing with video is because the eyes want to give something meaning that probably doesn't need meaning. Like
Right.
perfect example, Bachelor Grove Cemetery is notorious for the robed figures around. Dude, with the fence and it's in a thick forest, all the tree branches going around and stuff. Like I have debunked every robe figure as being the eyes. That's the pareidolia thing.
Mm-hmm.
Inventing something that's not really there.
Right, exactly. And I'm sure people probably were up in arms about that too, because no, you don't understand. That's really a ghost.
Yeah.
I can feel it. Yeah, as you see
no one gives a fuck about your feelings.
Yes, and you can see the leaves coming out of the robed person.
Exactly.
Tree branch.
I would say it's actually worse in the winter and fall after the leaves have fallen off, and you just get all the branches and twigs crisscrossing with like the fence. And
the knot holes and things like that.
Yep, exactly.
Coloration.
But I think the image analyst is the best to debunk the claims of orbs and mists, the apparitions, matrixing, all the rods, because that's really, if you know camera settings and stuff, it'll be obvious what it is. And plus, when you're taking pictures, pretty much any orb you get with just a single picture, not a camcorder, because camcorder, you can see flight patterns and stuff. You get the movements with the camera. Like, I think this is probably the best chance for you to get the false positive versus the camcorder. Let's see. So when you publish files similar to video, you have to make sure it fits and it'll upload.
Right.
Because of file sizes.
Yes.
It's on you to give the full context of all the manipulation you've done.
Yes.
And I think you have to know how to make galleries. I don't think a one and done picture. I mean, in some cases, if it's really good evidence and you want to showcase it, but generally speaking, I prefer like a gallery to be made so you can see the sequence of stuff
definitely
throughout the ghost hunt. And then, of course, working with the video analyst, because if you've got good evidence and it's a single frame, you have to, the video analyst should take that and include it into the evidence package that they're making.
Yes. I can honestly say, I have never really gotten any good photo evidence. The only time I have was with a thermal imaging camera, and that's it. So sadly, I have not been privileged with that.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the thermal imaging camera because there's a couple ways you can do it depending on which one you're using. You can take a picture or you record a video. I record videos with thermal imaging. But
that would have been so much better if I would have had video of that. I wish I could have taken video. I mean, I wish I would have taken video of the figure that I got at the Walker Ames house in Port Gamble, Washington. But not. It would have been really cool if we saw it moving.
True. Yeah, that would be amazing. I'll get to my apparition photos in a moment because I have had full body apparitions. So I'll tell you about how I got it and where I got it in a sec.
Cool, please.
But the other thing we didn't talk about is the SLS Connect and the XCam. To me, I mean, the tech manager's on the hook for setting it up. But when it comes to reviewing the evidence there, I would say it belongs to the video analyst because you are recording video with it. You can take pictures. Don't get me wrong. But XCam is made for movement, motion. So that's why I lean on having the video analyst going through that and selecting it. However, not all the file types, you might have to convert the file is what I'm getting at to make it useful depending on which one you're using. You might have to know how to convert one video type to a different to use it with your editing software. Most of that comes down to like with QuickTime stuff. And if you're using a .mov file versus an MP4, stuff like that. Not every editing software will use .mov, especially at consumer level. Like if you're doing Avid, which is used by film producers, TV shows, and stuff like that, not a problem. If you're using, something default on your PC at home, it may not take MOVs, or it may not take M4As. So
and sometimes you find that out the hard way. Yes.
Yes. And then you have to get a separate converter. Yes. Now, usually you can export from into different file types, but not every software will allow an input from a certain type. So I guess that's really so I forgot about the apparitions. So this is on Ghostly. If you do the Pasadena ghost hunt, this was Suicide Bridge. I did get a full-bodied apparition of a woman walking on the bridge. It was taken on an infrared camera that was interestingly set to color at the time, a normal camera.
It's very cool.
And it was one frame out of the 1,000 pictures we took. Only one frame had it in it. So
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I still debunked it. Simply because the time of the day, the shadows were casting from the, if you know Suicide Bridge in Pasadena, it's Colorado Street Bridge. It runs along, I think, Highway 110, maybe it's I-10. And it was in the afternoon, so there was it has an anti-suicide gate up.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, the rods were casting shadows down on the sidewalk. So you see the lady walking, but it looks like she casts a shadow because it's the rods on the gate being cast because of the sun. And so I debunked it because, I couldn't prove it was casting a shadow or not. So I threw it out because I had shadows on the bridge and she was walking. So.
But you knew in your heart that she was not there.
What's that?
I said, you knew in your heart that she was not there. I mean, a regular person.
Yeah. Oh no, because David was on the other end of it, and there was no one crossing the bridge in front of us or anything like that.
So that stinks. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
because you're going to have too many haters and say,
yeah.
Oh,
well,
on.
I mean, because there's doubt. I mean, every ghost picture you're going to have there's going to be doubt, but apparitions are for another podcast. But let's talk about tools that we would recommend.
Cool. Especially the free ones a lot of people want.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most of the stuff you can get by default
right.
on your computers nowadays, as long as you got a newish one.
That's true.
I think. But when it comes to audio analysis, June, I mean, what would you recommend and what are the most common types?
Well, I think most people, because it is offered as free, that you can download, is Audacity. I really, that's kind of the one I started off with. I have kind of moved up a little bit because I like, I don't know why. Well, I also sing. So I used to like to record myself singing and then, tear myself apart. So, go and listen to my voice and say, oh my God, that sucks. Yeah, but anyway, we won't get into that.
Okay.
What would you say about Audacity? I mean, basically.
So I used to use Audacity all the time.
Yeah.
But I have Macs, and the new operating system Catalina and Audacity are not compatible. And Audacity hasn't made a version that works with Catalina, so I can't use it anymore.
Right.
Though it was my favorite for EVP selection and analysis and file manipulation. Now I use, because I got Macs, I use GarageBand to do it. And
I've never tried that for anything. I always thought GarageBand was just used for, just for fun little things.
Oh yeah, no, you can use it. And I found out, I mean, I think Audacity does better with waveforms, but understanding that EVPs don't always create a waveform.
It's true.
I find just the interface of it, I think, is less intimidating than Audacity because, you know, Audacity has all these buttons.
Yes, exactly.
And GarageBand is a bit simpler because you can just turn on the EQ and it's got like knobs for noise reduction that you just flip on or off. So now I use GarageBand more often. So if you listen to the Thornwood Castle stuff, I edited all that stuff with GarageBand.
Cool.
And it allows me to manipulate just by turning a knob, you know, low frequency, high frequency, mid frequencies. And so like I've had really good luck with that. I've got a new audio editor called Hindenburg that also has a lot of this stuff too. And it's made for voice. So when you use GarageBand, it's really made for music.
Right.
But I've got this new editing software called Hindenburg, which NPR uses this apparently when they're producing stuff in the field and they need to do a quick edit to make everything sound really good. They use Hindenburg. And I haven't used it for EVPs yet, but it's much the same thing. I would say it's really, really good with voice. Compared,
nice.
It's made for voice editing because it's NPR, it's for radio, it's for and their podcasts and stuff. So music isn't its strongest part. It's definitely for voice.
I use WavePad now for mine, and it's the paid one, so it gives you a little more features and things like that. But I like it because it is very user friendly. Sadly, now that I'm getting older and seems like my tech mind is starting to really drift away a lot more because I'm not using it as much. You know, I'll just give myself that. But but it seems to be a little more user friendly for me. So I kind of like it. What did I use before? I think I used a software called AVP.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It was which was pretty good too, but I kept having some bugs in it. So, but that's what I'm using now is WavePad. But I'm sure, advance to something else, you know, later. I know me. Find something a little more user-friendly each time.
Yeah. So on the video editing side, like I said, I use iMovie. I think it's pretty simple to put in, and it's pretty. So all video editing software, I would say, takes a little getting used to.
That's so true. I'm so awful at it. It's embarrassing.
So I mean, once you get used to how it works, you can I've gone from iMovie. I do have Final Cut Pro. That's a bit more powerful than I need for making cute YouTube video.
Right. Exactly.
But you have a timeline, you drag clips, you split a playhead like you would with an audio player. It's got a lot of stuff built in to do transitions. It's the kind of thing where you just noodle around to it, and once you get it, you get it. I went through a learning curve. I was not the best at this stuff at first, but now it's pretty second nature to me. Another option is you've got Adobe Premiere, which works similar to iMovie and Final Cut Pro with a timeline and dragging files around. And everyone's like, well, what about the cost? Well, in the case of iMovie, if you got a Mac and it's newish, it's just part of the software. Part of it, yeah. And then for Premiere, even though it doesn't come by default with a lot of computers, they've got a $19.99 monthly subscription. So if you're going to do a lot of video editing for your ghost hunts and stuff, I mean, it's $20 a month.
I'd actually do that with a lot of my pictures and images as I do PicMonkey.
Okay.
And, I pay I think $3.99 a month for it, and it gives you new features and things like that. It's really pretty cool.
Yep, that's really nice about Adobe because you get the latest. I mean, if you're a Mac user, whenever they update Final Cut Pro or they update iMovie, I mean, you just get it just downloads and updates for you.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
I would say the cloud-based subscription, which is all the online stuff, they update more often. And what's good about Adobe Premiere, and we're not really endorsing for you to spend money or anything. This is just the stuff we use.
What we like.
Yeah. With Adobe, though, you can combine things. So you could get Premiere and you could get, say, Photoshop with it. And it's going to be like $25 to $30 a month if you do that.
That'd be nice because if people have not priced Photoshop, let's just say it can be a little pricey. Depends what you get though. But
like if you buy the individual standalone software, but what's nice about the subscriptions is they're monthly and you can just cancel it if you don't use it.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah.
So for, like I said, I mentioned we've got preview on the Mac, and there's Photoshop. Preview, like I say, is the same thing as Photoshop for a Mac. It's just greatly scaled down what you can do with it. But I think, get used to using those. There's lots of tutorials available out there. Adobe makes stuff available for you for free. And Mac, there's a lot of tutorials for it on YouTube. I would say for any of these things, from audio, if you're using Audacity to GarageBand, there's just go to YouTube.
Yeah, that's one thing I really need to remember. It's like there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, this is, I'm never going to learn how to do this because I'm not a very good person when it comes to reading directions. But if I'm watching something, I'm a lot better at it. And I need to remember there's probably every single thing you ever want to learn is probably a video on YouTube. And you can, watch it. So I think it makes it a little easier when you're watching.
Yeah. And, look at a few different tutorials, because I would say like Adobe and Apple, when they do the official training, like meh. But you've got some expert users that make videos too.
Exactly.
And they'll show you a lot more shortcuts.
Go to a real person using it.
Yeah, it'd probably be more practical.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then we got the software out of the way. We got the best practices and what they do. So June, what do you think makes a great evidence analyst?
Oh, man. I think, one of the top things is you got to have that patience, and you've got to want to look through everything and listen to everything. And that's probably a really good one. But, I think there's a lot of different characteristics, for people to learn how to become an analyst. And, they really do need to make sure that they are good at, I guess you'd say, organization skills, or, this is sorry, I was trying to think. Just, very methodical, because you have to take the same approach to analysts. I can't talk. I'm sorry. I'm not being able to form words while we're doing this.
It's still early in the morning. We're on the West Coast.
You just have to, make sure, because you're going to have to watch or look at something over and over and over again just to make sure you don't miss anything. So that's very important. You've got to be, very, and very persistent. You do have to push through the boredom of listening to the same investigation data, looking, for that 2-second long EVP and everything like this, or whatever. It could be, like I said, a simple little no, but you're going to catch something like that. It's like, all that stuff. And, they have to be very curious, I think. If you don't, want to know why something manifested the way it did or try to debunk it, then you won't make a good analyst. You just have to kind of know that. You probably won't be a very good investigator either, because, you have to be, curious of why do you think this is happening? Who do you think is there? Things like that. I mean, you just have to kind of put yourself in that mind frame, I guess you'd say. And having a good technical aptitude is probably really good. Ghost tech is always changing, and you need to keep up with it, because
the other
Jake
thing
is the king of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you have to, I mean, if you got a small team, then your evidence analyst is the investigator and stuff.
Yes.
So, you have to understand how to use audio workstations, video workstations, image manipulation.
Yes.
And we got plenty of people out there that are technically averse. And I'm like, do you even review your evidence then? I mean,
that's
how else are you going to review
it? We could get into a whole other show with that.
Yeah.
Because, there are the people, which like I said, I've called them fast food ghost hunters, are actually more like instant gratification ghost hunters. Is a lot of them just bring their spirit box, to an investigation, and don't even bring a video or audio, or any kind of recorder with them, because they just want it right then, and they don't want to review their evidence. So hey, hate to say this, buddy, but if you're doing it just for the thrills, you're really not a paranormal investigator.
Just wait, I kind of do it for thrills.
Oh, you don't just do it for thrills. I mean, you know what I mean? You like to know everything else. You're not just the thrill person.
I know.
You're not just there to be a thriller.
It is fun though when you get something crazy happen. Okay.
No, I love that too. I mean, I love that too, but I'm saying that I do also go through all of the footage that I have. You know, some people don't go through their footage. You know?
That's true. Or their audio. That gets my goat. You're right. Yeah. That's for another.
Yes.
We should set, you should have what annoys you with ghost hunting.
Yes. I think that, we need to have a whole show, and that could be like a 3 or 4 hour show.
That could be. We'll make it, we'll put in separate parts.
That really well. But also the next one is courage.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to be a little brave in this field. If you're afraid of the dark, if you're afraid of anything that goes bump in the day or night,
or the criticism you're gonna get.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Courage, feels that, because people are going to be haters.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a lot of haters because you're posting it out there. You got to take a deep breath and just post it. And if people are starting to say, you know, that's all fake, you just faked it all. You know, there's going to be skeptics. Mm-hmm. They're going to go through and just crucify you.
Yeah, but they're going to do that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to be brave.
But yeah, and the other thing is, you can always go, well, okay, I thank you for the feedback. Show me your evidence. Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10, they don't have any evidence, or it's obviously moisture on the camera lens.
Right. Exactly. So yeah. So I think that is a big thing. So you have to have courage in both senses. Mm-hmm. In both senses. But what about the sharp senses? Did you talk about that part?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. This is I find this is more so with audio analysts versus video and image analysts. Though with image, I mean, you have to be able to, and just like video, you have to be able to spot the anomaly. And if you're in a dark place, you got shadows, you know, sometimes you don't see things. Some people aren't as good with color spectrum.
That's true.
As others, and they can't see the nuance or the slight contrasts in things. But mainly I find this is more so with the audio analysts. And I kind of have this one thing, you know, some people don't hear lower end so well. Some people don't hear upper end so well. You know, the mid frequencies, which is usually where the spoken word happens, like my voice, June's voice. Okay. Some people just hear frequencies better than others.
Right.
And they can hear an EVP that no one else can. And it'll be clear as a bell to you. Mm-hmm. So this is why it's important to know how to cut and change EQ. Because I have bad ears in the mid frequency. And I'll hear things that other folks will not hear. And, you know, it's kind of like consensus reality. If they can't hear it, is it really there? So that's something to think about, and it's just going to happen. Some people just have some sharper senses than others. So, you know, my view is do your peer review with your evidence, and especially with audio. And if no one can hear it or make it out, even if you hear it, you know, put it in your personal stockpile. But I would say don't publish it.
Oh man, though it's heartbreaking sometimes that you think you have this really cool EVP that's saying, "I'm going to kill you while you're asleep, June," and everybody else is just hearing,
yeah.
It's like, no, get your Bose headphones out.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's the matrixing part of it too, where you're but it's just being able to hear it. So I spent time as a code breaker when I was in the Army. You know, the only way you make it there, because I was doing audio-based code breaking, is like you're trained to hear, like through static and through Morse code and through all this other stuff. So I've been trained for that kind of listening. So, but most other people don't have
Yeah.
that.
It really stinks too when you get older too. I've found myself having a hard time in crowded rooms and things like that, focusing
Mm-hmm.
on, someone that says something, and if it's a really loud restaurant or something around me, I'm having a hard time, hearing what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that as I'm getting older, sadly, and I have a feeling it's probably all that, when I used to be in my punk band, it's probably now my my hearing is starting to diminish a little bit. So, but if it's usually a quiet room, I can usually hear a pin drop. I mean, I can
Yeah.
hear really well, but when there's lots of noise around me, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole other story.
True. So,
But
like I said,
yeah,
I mean, some people just have sharper senses. So I think
exactly.
that's why if you're the evidence analyst, the peer review is a big one.
Yep. So you've got to
'Cause
be able to hear. That's
yeah,
just
and you have
the
to have the
main thing.
majority of people to see it and hear it.
Yes.
Otherwise, I would say don't publish it.
Yep, you're right. You're right. It is one thing, that now that I am getting older, I'm one of these people that I like to review all of my own stuff because, I was there, I know what happened, blah, blah, blah. And you can still do that. But I think it's a really good idea if you have somebody that can be the analyst to also do a sweep of
Mm-hmm.
everything because they may be a lot more, they might pick up some things that you miss.
Yeah.
And, you know, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to, try to do that. I am a little teeny bit of a control freak, so it's hard for me to hand off some of my stuff to somebody else. But,
Yeah.
you can still go through it and go through it yourself. But then after that, you might want to say, okay, can I have our analysts go through this and see what you think and see
Yeah.
what you can find? So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's very,
especially when you've cut out the clips and everything and you're ready to
yes,
publish it. That's probably when I would do it.
exactly.
So that brings us to the end of this episode. June, if someone is interested in becoming an evidence analyst for a ghost, what can they do?
Well, you can go to our website, aghost.org, and there's a lot of contact forms in there, and just, send me a note. Or, you can also you can send me an email at aghostjunevp@gmail.com. So,
Mm-hmm.
please do. I
Yeah.
would love to hear from anybody, right now. So, yes.
Okay. And so, folks, from Ghostly Activities, I'll drop a link to the article that I wrote about evidence analysts, and it has a list of additional resources you can use, different books that will help you with evidence analysis. And then I put links to tutorials on YouTube. All you have to do is click the link, and it'll take you right to the tutorials that you would need to
You
learn how
are
to use this
amazing,
stuff.
amazing, Jake.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for doing that.
And with that, everyone, I would say stay safe. And thank you for
Stay
tuning in.
well, stay healthy.
Stay healthy. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.